Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV, and that's normally where you hear Joe Healy's dulcet tones, but unfortunately, he's not able to make it to this week's episode. However, we went to the bench, brought on the sixth man of all six men, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend. I would probably say our most requested guest of all time because we always see like the Ralph spike in the download graph. Ralph Amsden, pinch hitting, co-hosting extraordinaire. Thanks for coming on, Ralph. How are you today?
I'm good. Is that real? Because every time I come on, you say that there's
I've tweeted
a
out
download
screenshots.
spike. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Who are these people? That's what I want to
Connoisseurs
know.
of the finer things in podcasting.
Okay. I'm wondering if I'm on a list somewhere where I need to be monitored by just like a room full of government employees or something. Because why? I don't know. I listen to your show. I'm fine with me not being on it. I do like hanging out with you. We're gonna have to make do without Joe this time, but it does feel good to hear that people are listening to what I have to say, and also it's a little scary.
But nothing, yeah. I mean, this is like manifesto has been kind of bandied around the college football space in recent weeks. So it's yeah, the manifesto of Ralph out there is always a welcome addition to the Speak of the Devils canon. And we've got a lot to talk about today, Ralph. The Sun Devils won a game, breaking a 6-game losing streak, and kind of
It's been a long. I'm so
oh
excited.
yeah, like they won a game, and so like they thankfully got it stopped it at 6 because they've never had it in the entire history of the program a 7-game losing streak. So that's out the window. Sun Devils got to win a big matchup, and I will again die on the hill that ASU Utah is a rivalry, especially now that it's going to be continuing in the years to come. We'll be previewing that game as well. A little bit later on, we're going to talk hoops with Kyle Dodd, the color analyst for Sun Devil radio broadcast. Great insight into the season ahead, and also a conversation with tight end Ryan Morgan, who caught his first pass after 4 years of hard work in the trenches as a blocking tight end, special teams guy. Really good conversation that we'll bring to you a little bit later on. But Ralph, let's first dive into some news. The news section here is going to be brought to you by the good folks at Spaghetti Shack. You can check them out at thespaghettishack.com. Brand new menu. I was actually there yesterday after the Kenny Dillingham press conference, got their new chicken parm. Really good. Ralph, have you been able to get out to the Spaghetti Shack on your trips out here?
No, but I'm coming out in 3 weeks. I plan on it.
Ooh,
Because
okay.
of your ads, I actually had to Google what a ghost kitchen was. I had no idea. And so because of Spaghetti Shack, I learned something. Who knows what information was pushed out, what childhood memories I lost, but I now know what a ghost kitchen is, and I have a perpetual craving for spaghetti. And I'll be out there in a few weeks. I look forward to getting some.
If you can go there on a Tuesday, the spaghetti tacos are really good.
Oh my gosh.
It sounds weird, but they make it work. A Sun Devil owned and operated, former Sparky the Sun Devil, heading up the Spaghetti Shack, went to their new location just a little east of rural on Apache. Great stuff there as well. All the great stuff at thespaghettishack.com. All right, so first off, as we do every week, kickoff times and no 6-day holds for the Sun Devils so far this year, which is good news. The UCLA kickoff is going to be at 6 p.m. Arizona time, 7 p.m. Pacific on Pac-12 Network on November 11th. Ralph, kind of a little bit sad because it's the last time probably that ASU is going to be heading to Pasadena.
Yes, that is sad. Um, it is an overrated place? Question mark. But it's the branding, right?
Oh yeah,
Granddaddy of them all. It's the Rose Bowl. It matters somewhat, and I hope that Arizona State can get back there. It's part of the college football playoff rotation, so there's a chance, I believe. But just as far as regular season against UCLA, I think there's going to be quite a gap because there's just not a lot of motivation to schedule these teams that bailed right now, and who knows? Who knows if the athletic directors are going to get together to try to keep some regional affiliation? We figure there's going to be a big battle to get games in LA, right? There's going to be a huge incentive for people who want to get out there and showcase their talent in Southern California. So all of a sudden, it's going to be maybe a highest bidder situation. I would not be surprised for two of the richer schools in all of college football to be having buy games, reverse buy games, where they get paid for somebody to be able to come out to have the privilege and play in LA because it gives you access to a super fertile recruiting ground. Who it's impossible to have imagined something like that even 4 or 5 years ago. But if there was a bidding war to go play UCLA in the regular season and you're a school like Arizona State, I would hope that you're involved because that is where you need to be able to draw some recruits from. But as far as just the regular season games, I hate going to any stadium that's not filled out, and UCLA fans are as fickle and as fake as they come when it comes to actually supporting the team. And of course, these comments always fall on the ears of the people that do show up, like my Pac-12 Apostles co-host George Reister, who's a UCLA season ticket holder. But it's not meant for the people that actually show up. It's meant for the 35,000 seats that you have tarped off.
Yeah.
Right. So I love going out there. I loved covering games out there. I love watching games out there in person. People in LA don't know what they have. They don't know how good they have it. Go to the games. Go to the games. Come on now. And I hope enough people show up to this game. But this feels like it has the recipe to be one of those that you got 70,000 empty seats. Hopefully that's plenty of room for people in maroon and gold.
That's true. Yeah, and one thing I won't miss is like that press box being kind of in the corner, which is kind of a weird setup. We're kind of spoiled.
Not like facing the field.
Yeah, it's super hard to kind of tell down a distance and everything like that. But I mean, the history's there, and if you get the right time of day, you see the sunset over the mountains, and it is cool. But yeah, the atmosphere is like kind of night and day to what we're going to see this upcoming week at Rice Eccles. That place is just an absolute madhouse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The students are right up on you. The way that it's built, the way the sound echoes there, the weather playing that team in November can be rough. Just the sea of red, it kind of wakes something up in you as an Arizona State fan, having that rivalry built in with University of Arizona. We're like bulls, see red and charge. So, whether it's Washington State or Arizona or Utah, anytime you see red, you got to take it out. So, that is a super, super fun experience. Highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't been out there. The food is good. The fans are cool. The environment's great. Um, if you're one of those people that believes that you like to imbibe and you believe that Salt Lake City doesn't have those options for you,
I've heard
you
that's
are
not true.
you are incorrect. Wasatch Brewery, there's Polygamy Porter. There's good stuff out there. I'm not even a beer guy. But
Is that a real name of a beer?
Polygamy Porter is like their version of Kilt Lifter. It's super popular out there. Yeah.
Okay, they become self-aware. I like it. I like it. Uh, all right. So moving on to probably the theme of this season has been the injuries in the battle. Some good news, actually. It seems there's no notable new additions to this week's injured list, which is, I think, breaking a trend. And actually, Ralph just came back from practice earlier today, and some guys were back in action, participating in position drills, including quarterback Jaden Rashada in full pads, and he was working with the quarterbacks. Didn't do any team stuff, but did go through some position work, threw some great balls in some one-on-one sessions as well. So it's good there. Kenny Dillingham did say that Bram Walden had a slight chance, but is considered doubtful. But just the mere fact that there's no new names on here, let alone perhaps getting some reinforcements in the coming weeks down the stretch. And of course, we're in that last 4-game period where guys who hadn't played all year could perhaps start to get involved and not redshirt. So it's good, some good news there, which is coming off a win. Maybe it's a bit of a double whammy.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it's good for the fan base because when things are not going well, you can almost find causality for everything, right? The offense isn't moving. You could draw it back to some of the things that are going on. One of which includes injuries, right? Recruiting isn't going well. You can take a look at resources. You can always data mine for pain points and things to change and things to tinker with. But when it comes to injuries, we hate them. We know we hate them, right? Um, Almost all injuries have nothing to do with each other. So there's not really like a common link in there, but it leaves us with this need to discover a root cause to place blame and to suggest solutions. And I mean, I've seen everything over the course of the season, from like they need to stretch more when like the injuries are like torn ligaments and broken bones.
Oh,
Yeah, let's get
internet
in there and
doctors.
stretch those broken bones. To like we need to fire the strength coach. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Talking about Jaden Rashada had a injury in high school that carried over. I don't know what that has to do with the strength coach per se, or a ball slips out of Trenton Bourguet's hands and he steps wrong trying to get the ball out of his hands so he doesn't take a sack. Oh, could we have lifted weights differently to prevent that series of calamities from happening? It's just that, as a species, we look for ways to place blame and ways to change things. And it's a good thing. It's how society progresses. It's how things get better. But in this particular case, it's not super useful. So the healthier we get, the better it is for fans who just don't know what to do with their emotions. It has been not a lot of fun watching people try to just deal with that part of it, because it has been such a large contributing factor to Arizona State's ability to have success on the field, to move the ball, to stay on the field, to have regularity with personnel, for people to get good reps in practice. All of this is being affected by the injury bug, and there's no simple fix. If there was, I'm sure Kenny Dillingham would be on top of it. You know, he's an innovative guy. So I just it's going to be good for everybody the healthier this team gets, because there's just no one for us to get mad at. Nothing that will, and we're good. We're good at getting mad at people for things. But this has no solution until everybody just heals up from what they're dealing with.
Yeah, ASU number one in innovation and getting mad at weird stuff.
Of course.
All right, so close out the news section before we dive into some football. Talking a little bit of hoops. Four-star Amir Ali commits to ASU yesterday. That's a pretty big pickup for ASU's 2024 class. They are kind of dealing a little bit. A 6'9" wing out of I had spent some time at IMG Academy. Yusuf Ali, his mentor and apparently uncle, recently has been hired on as an assistant coach to Bobby Hurley's staff as well. But another very talented addition to Sun Devil hoops. Now, Joe and I will be going more in depth into a season preview on our next episode. But Ralph, you're here. What's your impression in terms of this upcoming version of Bobby Hurley's Sun Devils? Losing a lot of guys, a couple key returners, but just as it has been in recent years, just almost a complete overhaul of the roster.
Yeah, and that's going to be what it is year to year. The culture of basketball that is entering into Arizona State and into most programs. We're in a situation where people are bouncing from club to club, not necessarily playing for high school teams. A lot of the focus is on, where can I get the best run surrounded by the best competition. And all of those, in the same way that the Pac-12 is dissolving over some TV networks going to war, um, unfortunately, youth basketball has devolved into an absolute circus thanks to some shoe companies that are trying to get market share. It doesn't really have anything to do with basketball itself. So, we're in a situation where Arizona State is reflecting the culture of basketball with the amount of turnover it has year to year. If you want to be able to retain some of these players, we're going to have to invest in a strong NIL product, because the opportunities that exist outside of Arizona State to play basketball. Very few of these players are going to be going to the NBA, right? Very, very few. But there are a lot of professional options available to them overseas. And now there's these semi-professional options available to them playing college basketball, where a collective is essentially doing pay for play. So if you have the opportunity to play basketball for $40,000 a month or $5,000 a month, the level of coaching that you're getting, it it becomes less of a priority. Bobby Hurley's a great coach. He runs a high effort program, and in order for that to be sustainable, there's going to have to be monetary value put on player retention. It's the only way forward. So, if you're if you're being stingy with that pocketbook right now, just understand that if you don't like the way it is now, it's going to continue to be that way unless people band together to show these players that they are valued in the situation that they're in. If you want to say there's an issue with Bobby Hurley can't relate to kids, why is this exact thing playing out at almost every school. You know, Kirk Rissa 30 minutes a game for Arizona 2 years in a row. Now he's finishing up at West Virginia. Suspended first, but finishing up at West Virginia because players are looking for the best opportunity for them. If they've been told, by somebody who gives them a grade, where they're not going to be in the NBA draft, then they have to start thinking about their immediate ability to capitalize on their skill set. So people are going to be looking for where the money is. Right now, that's elsewhere. That's the hard truth of it. That being said, there are some very good pieces that ASU has left over. And in this last run against Pac 12 schools, there's a serious ability to make some noise and potentially appear in the NCAA tournament. Things are going to get harder from here as we are surrounded by Big 12 schools whose fanaticism over their basketball programs is all time high, right? And getting more and more intense and more competitive every year as money's introduced into the equation. So all I gotta say is get those pocketbooks out because otherwise, if you don't like the way things have been going so far, the only way to change it is to make sure that there is a value for the players in playing for Bobby Hurley beyond just getting some good coaching, because 90% of these players' professional careers are going to be over with by the time they're 30. Their only opportunities to make money playing basketball is really right now, and so that's just to give some background on why players come and go. At the same time, I like Frankie Collins. I like him as a leader. I like that the players that didn't want to be here aren't here, because we've seen how that affects the locker room when those type of players that are very skilled and valued here choose to stay without feeling valued and without fully being bought in. It would have been great to have a fifth year of Remy Martin, but it was better that we didn't. And that's just the case of things right now. I think they'll be competitive. We would not shock me if they had a top four finish in the conference. And I think this is going to be the last real year to really be able to cheer for ASU basketball without being financially involved in their success, as we venture into the Big 12. So I say go all out, go all in, and have some fun this year, because this is going to be our best shot at making some noise for the next few years, in my opinion.
All right, Ralph, before we look back at ASU's second win of the season, 38-27 triumph over the Washington State Cougars. In your travels, Ralph, you've been down here, and one of the staples in the ASU community in Mill Avenue has been Cactus Sports. When was the last time you head in there and scored some ASU gear?
Anytime I'm on Mill, and that's every time I visit now, because when you're an outsider, you got to play the hits, right? You can't
Right.
just go about your day and do whatever you want to do. Anytime I come to Arizona, it's got to be all the things that I miss most. And Mill Avenue is on that list. And if you're on Mill Avenue, why aren't you in Cactus Sports?
Absolutely. 514 South Mill Avenue. They got all the Sun Devil gear you want. Holidays are just right around the corner. If you're probably not already starting your shop and you're probably a little bit behind, head over to Cactus Sports. Or if you're out of state or just don't want to make the trip down to Mill Avenue, which, again, there's a lot down there, cactussports.com for all your Sun Devil gear needs. All right, Ralph, ASU won a game. This is great. They broke the streak. Both Joe and I on the program predicted it. Didn't exactly see the offensive explosion that ASU put together. So maybe, this is a complete game. The offense put together season highs in just about everything. The defense rose up in key moments. Special teams even had some good moments as well. Dario Longetto, the special teams player of the week in the Pac-12. But starting off on the offense, let's talk about the offensive line. Obviously, the kind of turnstile nature, just given with the injuries all season long, but the last 2 weeks especially, pretty strong. And no sacks allowed yet again, and a season high 235 rushing yards. And I actually went back because I was like, when was the last time ASU had 200 yards? Probably not that long. Figuring, X Valade had great success. Didn't have one all last year except for against NAU. The last time they had a 100 or 200 yard ground game against an FBS opponent was 18 games ago. And so to do that, granted, maybe Wazoo's not the best defensive, bellwether, but still, the offensive line, given everything that they've gone through this year, continues to seem to be trending upward in the right direction at the right time.
Absolutely. And it helps that Washington State is small.
Yeah.
They're very small on the defensive side of the ball. They have one player over 300 pounds. It's Naeem Rodman, right? Like that. He's 307, and you should be able to push them around. They line up in wide splits. They rely on players that they're trying to develop. Jake Dicker is supposed to be an elite defensive guy. I think there's maybe too many cooks in the kitchen, is why Brian Ward, had the opportunity to come down to Arizona State and really fill a need here. That and this being, his home, his wife's home, but they're small. You should be able to push them around. You can't push them around. You can't push anybody around. Um, and so to go right at them in that way and to have success and really uh, help Cam Scatterboo from not taking so much punishment.
Yeah.
That's my biggest issue is he doesn't go down on first contact. So if you can limit his carries, you're not keeping him from getting hit one time per carry. You're keeping him from getting hit 4 or 5 times per carry, because he just doesn't go down right away. So to be able to create some lanes for DeCarlos Brooks, to have him, have double digit touches, makes sure that you can pick and choose how you use Cam Scatterboo, and this offense worked the way that it was supposed to work against Washington State. That was really, really fun to see, especially after a week in which they were moving the ball, they were chipping away at the rock, but they could only put 7 points on the board. So kudos to this offensive line. Kudos to Kenny Dillingham for designing an offense that could move the ball, that looked a little bit more traditional than the trickery that happened against USC. But at the end of the day, sometimes, big guy has to move small guy. And that's what happened in this game. The offensive line acted like an offensive line. And that is everything, because Kenny Dillingham didn't just get this job because he was from the state of Arizona. He got this job because of the way that Oregon's offense propelled them to have success last year. And Bo Nix in that offense didn't get sacked until the 10th game or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to see what a Kenny Dillingham offense looks like unless you can protect the quarterback and unless you can push people off their spot on the defensive line. This is the first time we've gotten a little sneak preview, little late night sneak preview, speak of the devil style, of what ASU could eventually look like on a week to week basis. Very exciting.
Yeah, you mentioned Cam Scatterboo. Kind of has been on a pitch count, so to speak, in recent weeks, just because he's been taking an awful lot of punishment, delivering a lot of punishment as well. 121 yards, had a nice 66-yarder as well. It was, it looked like he was gonna get to the end zone, but just fell a little bit short. But he was able to punch it in. And DeCarlos Brooks, man, he has made such a good impact in the 2 games since he's returned. Just that physical runner. I think he's got a little bit more explosiveness than Scat. 3 touchdowns, 67 yards rushing, and both guys just picking up yards at a consistent clip. Also kind of running a lot more in terms of trying the jet sweep action. Caleb Black got his first career touches, had a 3rd down run as well. Elijah Badger, I mean, just one of the things I think that's really stuck out to me is Kenny Dillingham, since he took over the play calling duties, get the ball to your playmakers in whatever form or fashion that you have. Badger, of course, a prolific receiver, but 4 rushes, 18 yards, including a touchdown run there as well. So Dillingham mentioned that they've been not necessarily perhaps the style of run game that he wants, but he's kind of playing to his team and personnel available strengths. And the results have been impressive in recent weeks, back-to-back weeks of setting a team season high in terms of the ground game.
Yeah, and it's everything you want, right? It's Jalen Conyers in space, tripping and falling for an extra 25 yards. Since we're giving shout outs, shout out to ASU medical staff for saving Jalen Conyers' life at halftime. Because I
And
don't know if
BJ
you know
Green at
this.
the end. This was great.
Yeah.
Like Miyagi touch.
Yeah, exactly. What a miraculous recovery for Jalen Conyers, just to get to, I think he blew every ligament in his knee right there at halftime. So for
I
them
was
to stitch
looking
him.
to the stands for like a sniper or something.
Oh wow, yeah, that was tough. That was tough, but they fixed him up real well. But it's nice to see him out there getting yards after the catch. To see Elijah Badger put in a position to exploit arm tacklers. Gosh, if you're not a disciplined defender, you will get embarrassed. The people on Elijah Badger's highlight reel right now, it's plentiful and it's embarrassing for them, because you can't arm tackle the guy. You really can't. And he's moving through crowds of 8 defenders who all think they can shove him to the ground. It doesn't work that way.
Because he
You
doesn't
know,
look like a Cam Scatterby, who you figure, okay, maybe he's powerful, can run. Badger doesn't necessarily look like that, but every week I'm turning to somebody in the press box, like, he does not go down on the first or second like contact.
no, no, it's just forward progress always. And so you got to see everything. You got to see the one cut stuff that DeCarlos Brooks has been doing since he was in high school. Pop Warner before that. This man loves Sun Devil Stadium, by the way. His last game as a high school player in Sun Devil Stadium, 300 plus yards rushing, 6 touchdowns
Not bad.
in a championship against Chubba Purdy, Brock's little brother. And I think he was out there at Sun Devil Stadium playing in a Pop Warner playoff game as well. I've been watching him
Oh,
play for a really long time, but he loves that stadium. He has a lot of success out there. To see him get in the end zone 3 times was awesome. To break the streak of no 20-yard runs with Cam Scatterwood getting a 66-yard run, that it's just everything you want to see. Everything you want to see. The a deep bomb is the one thing you're kind of missing, or a long run after the catch over the top. But this offense, other than that, it was like Stefan from SNL. It had everything. you know.
yeah, those explosive passes were something that every week Kenny's talking about. Just we need more explosives. We need more explosives, and they got the explosives. That 50-yard bomb from the roommate connection from Trenton Bourget to Jalen Conyers running through the contact. Troy O'Meary is continuing to be more of a factor now that he's out of the doghouse. Had a nice 30-yarder. Badger, of course. All 4 tight ends on the depth chart. Going down the way, all had a catch. Bryce Pierre had a really nice, impressive catch through traffic as well. Yeah, you mentioned it. Just to me, is like you start, and I wrote it in the game story. Just like this was kind of the flashes, the vision, just kind of bursting through a year of adversity of what ASU maybe year 3 could be.
Absolutely. And it's nice to see Trenton Bourget get a win, because
Yeah,
he's out there giving it his all every single week. He's leading this team the best he knows how. He has at this point, he's got to have more 300-yard passing games than Jaden Daniels did in an ASU uniform. And his game is not to go out there and throw the ball 46 times, but in his last 3 games, that's what he's doing. Running upwards of into almost 50 pass attempt territory if you count the dropbacks where he's getting sacked and stuff. And so to be able to go out there, throw 26 times, pick and choose his spots, play the game that he knows how to play, hit receivers when they're open on timing, understanding the offense, getting able to work the ball to multiple players. These are all the things that he is elite at. A lot is made for the fact that maybe he doesn't have the physical gifts, but you're not going to find a whole lot of people in college football that know where to go with the ball. Because if you can get the ball there, that's fine. But if you don't know where to go with it and when, that's when you see the most talented quarterbacks in all of college football flame out every single year, because they don't have an understanding of what it is they're trying to do. He knows everything, right? And he's trying to get his guys involved. He's trying to have them have success and have a good time. He's even out there picking up defenders. You see that running over trying to pick up defenders that are on the ground. Like I could not imagine having a better representative of your program, and to see him have success along with the rest of this offense was just awesome.
almost had another touchdown run, but it looked like the turf monster got him there.
Never do that again. Never. I was worried for him on that one.
Now switching over to the defense, obviously coming off one of the best efforts we've seen from a Sun Devil defense in a long time, keeping the Huskies out of the end zone offensively all game long 2 weeks ago. But if if you're just a casual box score watcher, you might have seen, okay, Wazoo had over 400 yards, scored 27 points. But as Kenny noted after the game, they really were able to kind of step up and make plays in the key moments of the game, something that kind of had really been holding the team back. From getting those wins over the last 4 games, in those key moments, but this week they made those plays. In the fourth quarter, Wazoo had 2 drives deep into the red zone for ASU, came away with just a total of 3 points. The Cougars were just 3 of 11 on third down. Solid against the run. Now, granted, the Cougs don't necessarily have the run, but they kept them one-dimensional at least. And the defensive line, Ralph, they've been a strength all year, the strength of the defense all year. But man, I thought they were just swarming. And the edges, just whether it's Prince Dorba, of course, BJ Green, who was named the Pac-12 Defensive Lineman of the Week. Clayton Smith finally getting that breakout game. He seemed like he's been getting close. He had a sack and a half, but just that trio was just on display as well.
Absolutely. And the thing about Cam Ward, Washington State's quarterback, is he is slippery like a fish, right? Like he's very good when it comes to escapability, but when you get him off schedule, he's not as dangerous as he can be. And he spent all night off schedule. They're going to get yards. It's what Washington State does. You know, if you want to discount what Arizona State's defense did, just look at the previous week when Cam Ward threw for 438 yards against Oregon. You know, he there and you know, thank you note to University of Arizona. I know we're not supposed to say anything good about them, but they really showed that if you can create pressure while dropping as many defenders as possible to put Washington State in a situation where they're just going to take what you give them, they'll make mistakes. And so, you know, Arizona was able to go out to the Palouse and win 44-6 with that strategy that kind of gave the game plan away for how, you know, to defend against Washington State. Not that, you know, our defensive coordinator Brian Ward doesn't intimately know the personnel that he was going up against, but they've got dangerous players: Josh Kelly, Lincoln Victor. They're good, very good wide receivers, and keeping them from being able to make too many plays after the catch. The discipline tackling ability of these defensive backs has impressed me all year long, not just in this last game. But it really all came together. I know they're playing super thin at linebacker as well. The support that was provided in the run game made Washington State one dimensional. And once Washington State's one dimensional, you're able to game plan against that. And yeah, the 27 points, the over 400 yards, none of that matters to me because this is a team that's going to move the ball and score regardless. And especially when they're in a situation like Arizona State, where they've been losing too. Losing teams are dangerous teams, especially if you subscribe to the idea that losses are lessons, right?
Yeah.
You come into the game 1-6 like ASU, you're pretty well educated. You've been doing a lot of learning, right? And that's
Yeah.
just it. You look at a dominant team like the Washington Huskies, they go up against a couple of teams that have just been learning all year, and they struggle against an Arizona State. They struggle against a Stanford. You know, Washington State's in that same situation where they've had to look themselves in the mirror and make adjustments the last 2 weeks, and they still came into Tempe and got beat. And that was not expected. They weren't the favorite, or they were the favorite. So I just kudos goes out to the entire defense. You know, it especially holding them to the field goal at the end, which essentially made coming back kind of impossible. Like, I don't understand why Washington State didn't just go for it, because they were in a situation where it was going to be 2 scores regardless, right? So,
Yeah, in terms of
they
like why they should going for it on fourth down instead of maybe
yes,
kicking there because you need the touchdown and the field goal. So why not get the field goal, save some time because you're going to need that second possession anyway.
right, and those are the types of decisions made by a flustered team. And
Mm.
that's what every single time they got into the red zone, they got into a place where they could do something. Arizona State played them very, very tough, and I think it forced them into just some backward thinking and some bad decisions. And that's where you want to be. You want to be in their head, because that's what they did to us back in 2021. You know, had the fans booing the players.
Yeah.
You know, had to put shame on the Rose Bowl team that was
Oh,
there to get honored. And I'm glad that I feel like the 2023 game really just washes the bad taste of the 2021 game completely away from the program.
all right. So before we cap the review, definitely got to talk a little bit about special teams, something that cost ASU in recent weeks, obviously due to kind of maybe some performance, but also just the inability of having enough healthy bodies to like say a field goal unit. Wasn't necessarily the case. Dario Longetto, as mentioned, was the Pac-12 Special Teams Player of the Week because he had a key 51-yarder right at the end of the first half that I thought really kind of played a pivotal role in getting some momentum in there as well. And that was interesting because like I was thinking the box. ASU got the ball back with 42 seconds left, kind of deep in their territory. Under Herm Edwards, that's a quick, kneel down into the locker room, whatever. But Kenny Dillingham's aggressive. Now I think that this isn't this year doesn't matter aggressive. This was just like new coach or modern coach who understands what today's game is going for it, and all of a sudden you put yourself in a position to get some key points at the end of the half.
Yes. When your special teams performs up to par while also having a coach whose strength is situational awareness, then that's the difference between winning and losing. It really is. And the one thing you'll notice about Kenny Dillingham on the sideline is that he is out there computing. running up and down the sideline, making sure that everybody's on the same page, because it's also not just it can't be just you that understands down and distance and timing. Your players have to be on that page as well, or else that knowledge is just knowledge that will create resentment in you because no one else followed the game plan. Nobody else knew what was going on, right? Like, say what you want about how funny it was for Jalen Conyers to fake an injury. That might have got us 3 points. Might have been the difference between winning and losing. And being able to have everybody on that same page, that's coaching. And you can't coach situational awareness if you're not situationally aware.
Yeah, and also a little tip of the cap to Ian Hershey, late,
Oh
dropping
my
the
gosh.
snap, but still evading. It's nice athleticism there to get the punt off, and again forcing Wazoo to drive down the length of the field, a drive that ended with a turnover on downs with the Ed Woods PBU, but just to evade the pressure, avoiding disaster in that situation.
I'm glad you brought and Hershey. What a kick!
And great, one of the best rolls I've seen in a while.
Yes, and he just got it out of there, and it took everything in me not to tweet like, "What a Hershey squirt," but like I didn't. I said it on here, but I want everybody to know that I exercised, because I think there's some people out there that think I don't have discipline on the internet, and I just want people to know I did not tweet Hershey squirt, even though I thought it.
Your Twitter draft set folder must be wild.
Oh man, yeah. Even if I get into paradise, that my phone's not coming with me. That's for sure.
All right, Ralph, with the holidays coming up, you need to get some awesome swag for the folks in your life, whether they are ASU fans or not. Home Field Apparel is the right place for you. Premium licensed vintage collegiate apparel, incredibly comfortable. My closet is exceedingly deep with Home Field stuff of shirts, hoodies, joggers, quarter zips, tank tops, and more. A 25-piece ASU collection is on homefieldapparel.com right now, including the brand new bomber jacket. My girlfriend got one recently. It is amazing. And also they have 175 other schools. So gifts for the entire family. And Ralph, I know that, even though you're back there in Carolina, they just recently launched a Idaho Vandals collection, which is pretty amazing.
Oh, for sure. And for anybody who still has a PlayStation 3 with a copy of NCAA 14, you would know that probably the worst school on there was Idaho. And I've won something like 35,000 national championships with the Idaho Vandals by this point. And they're in the process of buying University of Phoenix, of which my wife is a proud employee. So about to be a Vandals family. If someone wants to go on there and buy me that Kibby Dome t-shirt, that's one I've had my eye on. I got some Wyoming gear. I've got some Arizona State gear. My oldest son wears the back-to-back Rose Bowl Washington shirt like once a week. It's his favorite shirt. The problem with Home Field is it will make you like schools that you typically would never have thought of otherwise, just because their gear is that sharp. The UCLA bomber jacket is giving me feelings toward the Bruins that I've never had before.
I actually have a note here on my phone. It's the Home Field, excuse me, the Home Field inventory, currently at 126 pieces. And yeah, I'm an ASU alum. Yeah, I have a problem, Ralph. My family's dying. So
help me with my budget.
Yeah, I don't know how many dozens of schools, but yeah, the things the collections are so amazing. It's great vintage. I have like 4 Wyoming pieces because of you, because I'm like, I pull for Wyoming now.
I appreciate that.
I have the cowboy rootin' tootin' Cowboy Joe and everything in there. So yeah, but the best thing of all, Ralph, whether somebody wants to go online and get you that Kibby Dome shirt, just use offer code SOTD23 at checkout for 15% off your purchase. We partnered with them and they gave us a cool offer code for any of you folks out there who have not yet experienced the Home Field magic. Go to homefieldapparel.com, use offer code SOTD23 at checkout. 15% off. Now it's time to bring up my interview with Ryan Morgan, who been in this program 4 years, Ralph, a guy who's kind of put in the work that nobody sees in the box score, doing the dirty work on special teams, in the trenches as a blocking tight end. Finally got rewarded with a big catch on Saturday. It was a good moment for him, but also a lot going on and a lot of good things in that tight end room. So after Tuesday's practice, was able to catch up with Ryan and for a great conversation. All right, Ryan. So first career catch on Saturday. How'd that feel?
Honestly, in the moment, it was just like any other practice, any other game. Just kind of getting in the flow of things.
First career catch.
Once I got on the bench, though, coach came up to me and said, "Is that your first catch of the season? Did you get a catch the ball last year?" And I said, "No, that was my first catch ever." And he gave me a hug and stuff, and it was a good moment. It kind of set in a little bit, but we practiced so much out here. It was just like any other catch.
Obviously, you just kind of all the tight ends had a catch. What is it like just for the entire group to contribute? Obviously, you guys doing a lot of work in the blocking, but just as contributors through the pass.
For sure. It was really exciting for me. Obviously, again, first catch, and then seeing one tight end after the next tight end get a catch. Also, it just gave me this sense of pride in our room. That like, hey, we're doing the things right in the blocking game, and we're getting rewarded in the pass game as well. And so it's encouraging, and it's a good feeling. And I feel like we are good enough to contribute to the team in that way. And so it was good to see that.
What's it been like just here for a few years now, and just obviously no catches to this point, but just putting in that work, grinding, the special teams, the blocking, but then finally kind of get that kind of carrot, if you will, at the end of the stick.
For sure. It's rewarding in one sense, but at the same time, I've always been the guy that's just like putting my head down, grinded, just did what I was asked to do to the best of my ability. And so even going into this year, I had the expectation of I'm going to be a primarily blocking tight end special teams guy. I knew I was going to go on some routes. Wasn't sure if I was going to get the ball, but I knew I was going to be ready. So again, it wasn't necessarily a surprise that I got the ball. Not exactly what I expected. But I'm happy with it. But again, I'm very happy doing my job and just attacking my job to the best of my ability.
What's it been like, just getting the mentality, just to kind of put in that dirty work, that doesn't really necessarily show in the box score, but is obviously so very crucial to team success.
No, seriously. I think early on, coming from high school, I was a wide receiver. I caught the ball 8 times a game at least, and so it was a little bit of a shift getting here. But I've been here this is my 4th season here. Being able to just continue to work and just continue to understand the importance of blocking and just the little things, especially special teams, I've come to learn that that is super important. It's just as important as catching the ball, making the big play. And for me, I take pride in that because instead of it just being kind of put on a pedestal, and not to say that catching the ball is not important, but ultimately for me, I feel as though blocking, running down on special teams, making a tackle, making a crucial block is the most important thing someone can do. And again, it'll always kind of go unsaid, unpraised, but that's totally fine with me. And just kind of, I've kind of developed that mindset, basically just doing it so often, and just learning to appreciate what I'm capable of doing.
The last prior 4 games, you guys have been knocking on that door and just getting close. How good did it feel to finally put together a complete game and get that W for you guys' efforts?
It just felt like we finally got what we deserved, right? The last 4 games, it really felt like I had so much confidence every single game, we're going to win this game for sure. And then obviously it ended in disappointment the first 4 times. This game, again, the same certainty. And so it was just nice and satisfying to see it all the way through to the end. And I really feel like if we just continue playing the way we played this last game, and even the games prior, just kind of putting it all together, I think we can make a run this second half of the season.
Speaking of, it starts in Utah, hostile atmosphere. You've been there a couple times already. Yeah. So what are some of the things that kind of jump out about this Utah defense? Obviously, one of the year in, year out, one of the toughest units. But definitely. Just what is this 2023 variety? What jumps out to you?
Definitely their line and their upfront guys. They're very physical, very hard hitting. Even their corners and secondary when they're in the perimeter blocking game, very physical. And so last week we did a lot of perimeter blocking and those kinds of things. And so we got to expect that they're going to come ready to hit, be ready to. So we got to come ready to be extra physical this week. They're always known for their physicality, but I think especially this year, that's their primary focus.
What are some of the things now, the last 4 games of the season that you individually kind of want to put together and make sure that you guys you personally are able to finish on a high note?
For sure. I think for me, again, even though after the catch, that was great and everything, for me, it's I got my catch. I'm good, man. What I really want to do good at and be super dialed in on is my blocking technique and being able to finish perimeter blocks and especially interior run game blocks. Because I feel like in the past I've always been able to block well, but I really want to be able to dominate the blocks. So I think that's really going to be my focus going forward, is seeing how well I can dominate the blocks in the inside.
So one of the traditions I have this season is after covering an ASU practice, I head over to Burrito Express over at the intersection of University and Rural, grab a BSB, the Breakfast Supreme Burrito, because it is one of the best after practice snacks I can get. Get the red sauce. I recommend that, Ralph. I know Jalen Conyers went on record as saying he's a no sauce on a burrito kind of guy, which Burrito Express, you can get away with that because the meats and selections there pretty great. But I mean, where do you fall? Are you a red or are you green or are you weirdo like Jalen?
All green all day, and I'm
Really? Okay.
yep, and I'm a self applicator of the sauce. So I bite and then I pour into the bite.
Oh, you absolutely. That's the proper technique. I mean,
Yes.
is there any other way? Are there dippers?
Some people are dippers. Some
What?
people
In those little
pour.
cups?
Yeah, well, some people pour it directly onto the paper and then just mash the burrito into the table. That
Who are these
ruins the
monsters?
integrity and the structure. I don't know. My kids who raised them. But
Oh,
no, I'm a green sauce guy.
okay.
And man, I love a good bean and cheese. I love a good shredded chicken. I'm a little picky when it comes to the breakfast burritos. I like what I like. So what would you recommend for when I'm in town?
I go the BSB. It's bacon, egg, cheese, and the Coben Bourget twist on that. He calls the audible because one time I was in there and he was in line there and he said, "Man, get it. Add the chorizo in there. That
I
takes
like
it to another
chorizo.
level." Yeah,
Chorizo's my number one. All right, I trust Coben. He's a smart kid. I like him.
yeah, yeah. So you just head on route to any of the 6 Valley locations, including the one, as I mentioned, just a half mile from Sun Devil Stadium. Open 7 to 3 Monday through Friday. Some locations are open as early as 6 a.m. during the week, 8 to 3 on Saturdays and Sundays. You can actually also order online at theburritoexpress.com for pickup or delivery. Ralph, let's dive into ASU's next game. This one's well, first off, let's get you on record. I've been on record. I think this is a rivalry, ASU versus Utah, based on what we've seen. People are probably tired of hearing about me defend my stance because Joe is very much the opposite. Where are you? You'll be the tiebreaker for this year?
Okay, so we're headed to the Big 12 where you are absolutely allowed to have multiple rivalries. There's no rule against this whatsoever, right? And so and you could have individualized rivalries for different sports. I already feel that way. We share a whole border. We're both pioneer states. Both got a pretty hefty LDS population. Uh, we both have sky and horizon as far as the eye can see. And for some reason, you can also ski in both places. Like there's for me, the state of Arizona versus the state of Utah is a battle for like Western supremacy. And so you build that all in, and then you give them the color red, which I've already talked about, unacceptable. and then we battle for some recruits. Plus, they're the new kid on the block. They're very physical. They have an ingrained identity. Our games have been, I would say, the games against Utah have been more physical than any other opponent.
Absolutely, yeah, it's one of my arguments.
And the fans are they're like proper weirdos. And so like you need that. You can't just like if I went out and I was yelling at my neighbor to, their leaves are because out here all the leaves fall off the trees, everything dies at the exact same time, and all the women are like, "Ooh, fall, color changing." Like, no, that's everything dying. But like, and it creates hours of yard work every single day. So if my neighbor, all their leaves are falling into my yard and blowing into my yard, and I go out and I yell at them like, keep your leaves off my lawn, you bum. And they respond back, okay. There's not really a rivalry there, right? There's just me being a jerk. But if you've noticed, when you call Utah fans bums, they say it back twice, loud. Like
And if
there's
and that one dentist will add some other things.
yeah. Oh my gosh. And yeah, they got idiots like anybody else. But the thing I like about Utah fans is like they'll play into it. Even if they're telling you it's not a rivalry, it's not a rivalry, you bum. Like so I appreciate the back and forth. It's good football. It's kind of throwback. And we share a border. What more do you want? We're both going to the same conference together. You might as well keep it going. I like the idea of having more than one rivalry, and I think that in the new conference, and I don't think it's ever really going to be Colorado. So, Yeah, why not? Why not? It's not like 1A, 1B. I don't know if people feel threatened like the territorial cup's going to be diminished. Not in any way. It's its own completely separate thing. Do people not have more than one person in their life that they hate?
Yeah, see, this is my argument because that was the pushback. 'Cause no, it's only like people in our own conference have multiple rivals, and it's fine. Yeah, obviously Arizona is one gap, and then I think obviously Utah has been there, and then I think in the future going forward, based on the temperature of the room that I've read from ASU fans, probably BYU is slotting into that third position.
I love it. I love it. And that's as growing up, Wyoming fan. Um, we got Colorado State, we got BYU.
Yeah,
And
USC's got a bunch.
exactly. Oregon's
Oregon's
got
got a
Oregon
bunch.
State, Washington.
Yeah.
Washington has the Apple Cup, and they have Oregon. It's totally fine. And if we're being very honest with each other, saying that it's not a rivalry really, really loud so that everybody can hear you is like the most rivalry move of all time.
Yeah.
Because that makes people upset, and that's funny. So yeah, I mean, I'm all in. I'm all in on this.
All right. So, okay. 2-1. Joe's outvoted. So there we go. It's officially rivalry. All right. So let's preview this rivalry game. Utah 6-2 on the year.
Mhm.
Dropped a little bit in the polls after getting blasted by Oregon. Now, I don't think that's really too much a fault of Utah. They're probably the second most banged up team in this conference this season, collectively, outside of Arizona State, and Oregon's just going to do that to people. I think they're going to make a run and probably the conference favorite right now. But Ralph, before we kind of dive into the offense and defense here, overall thoughts. I know with the Pac-12 Apostles podcast, you and George Reister do an amazing job covering this conference, an absolutely essential listen each and every week. What are your kind of big picture thoughts on this 2023 versions of the Utah Utes and Kyle Whittingham? Just it seems like the most consistent brand in the conference in terms of what they're going to bring to the field each and every year. But even through all their difficulties of Cam Rising not playing a single down, Brant Keith not playing at all this year, still 6-2 and still ranked.
Yeah, they prove that the priority of football is still run and stop the run. Right? They you hear it all the time. It all starts up front, football guy talk. And unfortunately, the model gets proven by Utah, who has a pig farmer walk on at quarterback, are converted, not even converted. I hate that I use the word converted. They have a starting safety,
He's going both ways.
safety at running back who was a high school receiver. So he's out here running wheel routes for 50-yard gains multiple times a game. And
He has
their
more
backup running back is a quarterback.
Yeah, and I was say like Sione Vaki, the safety you mentioned, he's got more catches than their leading pass catching tight end, which seems so un-Utah like. This is a weird year, but mad scientist Whittingham's making it work.
Yes, and they do not let you run on them, and they run the ball. And if they can't run the ball, they still run the ball. They're not going to be able to change who they are into something completely different. They've gone back and forth just like ASU has on trying to find the right fit at quarterback. They've made multiple changes. Bryson Barnes has been a little bit beat up this year, but he played like an absolute champion against USC. The truth of the matter is they just ran into a much healthier, more physical, more skilled team in Oregon, and they got humbled at home. So they're going to be a little bit upset, understandably. They are very, very disciplined. They are well coached in the defensive backfield. They develop really, really well in the front seven. They're not fully healthy, and you can move the ball against them. I don't want to paint Utah as being like the invincible, unstoppable force that they've been in previous years. But the thing that you have to worry about with Utah is over the course of the last few years, it's been slow starts followed by strong finishes. This year, we're looking at a slow start in which they were still getting victories. The fact that they pulled one out against Baylor, it probably shouldn't have happened that way. They didn't score their 2 touchdowns against Baylor until the final quarter. They're not running on E, but they're in rough shape. They're in really rough shape. To call Utah vulnerable would be just a gross mischaracterization of what Utah's weaknesses can even be. But they're coming back down to earth defensively because of personnel issues. Their best edge rushing linebacker out for the season. He's been out for the last 3 games. Tafuna has been beat up. And they don't have NFL talent in the defensive backfield. They've got good players, but not the high level NFL talent that they had before. And if that was the case, you probably wouldn't see Vaki on both sides of the ball. But what they've been able to do in the running game is truly special, given that they came off of several years of elite running backs to now having to play a safety and a quarterback in Jaquindon Jackson. And they both know exactly what to do. They both north and south. They both have speed. They both follow blocks. They're both football players. And Bryson Barnes, he's not gonna make mistakes. He's not gonna win you games. He's not gonna make mistakes. The real issue is that they don't have the tight end production that they've had. Brant Keithy has not played this year. Their third string tight end out for the year as well. If you were like, oh, the dreaded Utah and their walk-on tight ends that they've developed into NFL players, that's not them this year. They are out here to stop you from. They're here to crash down on your running game, so that you are constantly in second and third and long situations, and they are going to. And it's not even run the ball down your throat. They're going to run the ball all over the field. They will rush to the edge. They have the speed to do it. And they're very physical on the offensive line. Again, not super talented, but they are experienced and physical, and their offensive line has been developed the way that you want to develop an offensive line. Guys that are around for 4 or 5 years. So dangerous, but not in the ways that you would typically expect. They're not they don't have the playmaking ability that they had before. So their goal is to beat you up, to make you tap out, and they can. They absolutely
They often
can do
do.
it. Yeah. 6-2 is not bad. It's really not bad. There's issues that are going on at Utah right now that don't really affect the way that things are played on the field, but the way they handled the whole Cam Rising injury is very confusing. The way that they haven't been forthright with what's going on with Brant Keithy. I don't think any of this has been really helpful to the program. And they had the opportunity to showcase the program last week. They had College Game Day there. They had Kyle Whittingham ride out on a motorcycle and hang out with Pat McAfee. Maybe that helps them in recruiting or in some way, but then they just got punked by Oregon. And they've only had 3 losses in their entire Pac-12 era of 29 points or more. They've never had one at home. So this was, they're coming off of their worst loss at home in the entire Pac-12 era ever. The only other 2, they have 30-point losses. One happened at U of A in like 2014, so 42-10 loss. And then Arizona State got them by 30 once, I think. They've never, especially in the last 5-6 years, they've never had anything like this. It could be indicative of the state of the program. I'm telling you this right now, not to give optimism to Arizona State fans, because what I can't say is like, we're in great shape, and they're not, and we'll take advantage of it. What I'm telling you is like, they are not in great shape, and it got exploited. That could go either way for ASU. That could put them into adjustment mode, which could be bad. It could make them angry. The odds of them losing twice at home, not great. Or it could have just exposed the fractures, and Kenny Dillingham, would have the ability to go in there and use what we have to exploit it. It really could go either way. What I just want people to know, having watched every single Utah game this year, the toughness is there that you've come to expect, but like the skill level way down. So the games will get sloppy too, because it's not like it's not like they're running out veterans at their position in order to go out and make plays. Every once in a while, they'll try a bomb. That hasn't typically worked on ASU this year, but they'll set you up to go deep. They did it to Florida. They scored on like the first play of the game doing that, and they did it to USC as the broadcast was introducing USC's defense, which I found to be hilarious.
Very
But
on brand.
very few and far between will they unleash that deep ball. You just got to be ready for it, and they'll do it on a wheel route to their running back, who is a safety. And if you remember the USC offenses of old that used to run their fullbacks out on wheel routes, stuff's frustrating, man. Super frustrating. And they've really kind of just lucked into this situation. If you can shut Sione Vaki down, you probably win the game, which is a weird thing to say about a guy who starts on both sides of the ball.
So let's do a great overview there. So let's maybe perhaps do a little role play here, Ralph. Talking
Sure.
about that ASU offense that's coming off season highs and just about everything, was able to run the ball, was able to get those explosive pass plays that have been sorely lacking all season long. Now, obviously, this is a massive step up, even with some of the key losses for Utah in terms of just the competition ASU is going to be facing, because the defense year in, year out, just big, mean dudes. The making plays behind the line of scrimmage, although they struggle to do that against Oregon, as most people would. That's a good line. But you're Kenny Dillingham. You've seen what your offense is able to do. You see the kind of the personnel getting a little bit healthier. You're going on the road, hostile environment. What kind of game plan are you drawing up, and what kind of game plan are you looking for? And maybe not weaknesses to exploit, but just matchups that you'd like to go after.
Oh man, remember when Kenny Dillingham came out and he was like, "You play to have victory in the contest." He did accidentally did his Herm impression. You got to go out and play Herm ball. I hate to say it, but you have to do what you did against Washington and dominate time of possession, and then you really, really, really have to key in on that running game. And I'd say stack the box, but they're dangerous out to the edge too. So you just have to be super disciplined. Eye discipline on play action, but offensively, you got to move the ball. And last week, Arizona State was 8 for 11 on third down. I don't know if you can duplicate results like that every week. Those are otherworldly results, right? But it kept them from ever having to go for it on fourth down. The previous 4 weeks, Arizona State had to go for it on fourth down 18 times. 18 in 4 games, which is got to be a record. I'm just going to come out and say that if I'm lying, I'm lying. But going for it on fourth down 18 times in a 4-game span, it might be an NCAA record. It's crazy. And they did not have to do that last week. So if you can put yourself in a situation to not be intimidated by the crowd, and I doubt ASU will be because they faced Washington at Washington in prime time. I think that, I think they'll be okay. But turnovers, right? Utah's very good at creating turnovers. So Scatterboo, DeCarlos Brooks can't be fumbling, can't give them an extra opportunity. They will capitalize on any extra opportunity. So if you have the ability to dominate time of possession and withstand untimely turnovers, then I think you'll be within striking distance the way the ASU was against Washington, because this Utah team is not as offensively talented. Washington is very physical. There's nothing that ASU is not going to be prepared for. Do not grant yourself a loss prior to the game based on Utah's reputation and toughness. They're football players on both sides of the ball. All you have to do is play mistake. All you have to do is be perfect.
Yeah.
Just go out and be perfect for 60 minutes. But no, you just got to play mistake-free football on the offensive side. If you got to punt, you got to punt. You got to punt 10 times, you got to punt 10 times. Just don't give them the ball in good field position because they'll eat you alive.
All right. So before we dive into our keys, Ralph, maybe switching over to when Utah has the ball, ASU's defense has played pretty well, and I think they're in conversation for being among the best, maybe not the best, but among the best in the conference based on what we've seen so far. And this is an offense that has really struggled coming off a 6-point performance. The quarterback situation obviously is what it is with with Bryson Barnes, the pig farmer, which, by the way, I don't know if you saw the graphic that I think was Fox had, that he's
most in FBS.
12 grew up on a pig farm with 12,000 pigs, most in FBS. Like, bravo, well done. But do you think? But they do have Devon Valet as a big body wide receiver, but doesn't seem like to have a Money Parks is making some catches, and Mikey Matthews kind of that smaller slot guy, maybe in the Britton Covey type of mold there, but no tight end. In terms of what we've come to expect with the Utah standard. Do you think the game plan is simply just kind of load that box and make the pass game try to beat you?
Your safeties, your safeties are going to be probably in the biggest position to aid you here, because not only do they have to be disciplined in the run game for anybody that gets to the second level, they got to make sure that nobody gets behind them, because that's really the only place where Utah's passing game is dangerous, is if they get a receiver back behind a defensive back. So it's really going to, the safety play is going to be super, super, super important. And then, yeah, I mean, you might get 60 yard reception out of a Money Parks in this game. Vele's more of the, it's 3rd and 11, he'll get you 12 type guy. But look, it's, you just have to be ready for the most traditional Denver Broncos John Elway football of run, roll out, bomb. And if you follow Jake Plummer to Denver when he moved on, that's the same offense they ran there. Where Jake Plummer would have 200 yards passing at the end of the game, and 60 of it came on one rollout to Ashley Lilly. Right? That's the type of thing that you're dealing with here. You have to understand that they're happy to get 4 yards if they can do it 3 plays in a row. So don't get discouraged if you can't get them off the field right away, but you don't want to give them that big chunk play on a pass just because they lulled you to sleep. So they're going to need some super, super disciplined play out of their safeties, and they probably can't afford to bring them up too often because, you leave your corners out on an island, and corners on an island is probably the title of Todd Graham's, biography of his last 3 years at Arizona State.
So before we dive into our 3 keys to the game and our game predictions, if you're in the market for a new vehicle, either now or perhaps in the future, why not do business with a fellow Sun Devil, Parker Jones, not only the owner and GM, but a 3rd-generation Arizona State alum and a diehard Sun Devil fan. Great stuff going on with Jones Auto Group. They've been helping ASU's NIL game, getting some vehicles to a few of the key guys on this year's Sun Devil football team. And you can even text him directly or call him at his number 602-881-8998, or head to jonesautocenters.com for more information. We've had listeners that have hooked up with Parker and gotten a great deal, a lot of great experiences over there. Again, Sun Devils helping Sun Devils, and support those who support the show. Ralph, diving into some of these keys, I think number one, for ASU's defense, you just got to kind of win those early downs and, make the pig farmer beat you. Because you look at last week when they were behind the 6 and facing a 3rd and 5 or more, just 2 for 9. And I think that, as it's kind of the points you alluded to, with the injuries and kind of the limitations they have on offense, if you can win those early downs, that's going to bode pretty well for the prospects of pulling that upset.
Yeah, I mean they're going to run you to death, but they're not going to do it on 3rd and 9, right? So if you can be disruptive right out of the gate, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's the key to success.
Number 2, I think ASU needs to really kind of start fast offensively and just take the crowd out of it. It is Rice-Eccles Stadium. I mean, it's a hostile environment, as you mentioned. Where do you rank Rice-Eccles? I mean, you covered games all across this conference in this footprint. Where does a fired up Rice-Eccles kind of rank amongst the road atmospheres in the Pac?
I think they have the benefit of, if you haven't experienced it, of shock, right? So you go to Autzen, you expect it to be a certain level of hostile. I've talked to Pac-12 players. They've said that that's a nightmare. I talked to a quarterback who got thrust into a game because of injury. He said he always thought couldn't hear myself think was an expression. And he's like, they drowned out my thoughts. It was scary. Right. But I think you go to Autzen and you expect an environment like that. I think same for University of Washington. The thing about Utah is, and when Utah jumped into the Big 12, I tried to tell the Big 12 fans, I'm like, you're going to hate this. Like it's hell. And they're like, oh, we'll be fine. Cause they're all maniacs, right? They all love college football. They all fill out those stadiums. And I'm like, yeah, the thing is, it's that attitude right there that gets you. It's the, I'm going to be fine. Like, because you're not. There might only be 45,000 people in that stadium, but the noise, they have tools to measure decibels. And when it's the same as the big house or the shoe, something's going on, right? So you just have to, like you said, they're out there in the bubble practicing with noise. That's a good thing because the surprise factor really elevates it. So to me, it's number one, and a big part of that is because the first time I went in there, I was like, "What is this?" And you've experienced it as well. You can speak for yourself on this.
Yeah.
It is. There was that year where in the rain, Mike Bercovici, they beat him up as bad as I've ever seen a quarterback get beat up until he got into um, the AAF. Then he
Oh
took
my
it.
God, the first
Then he took
play.
a hit a little bit harder, but
Or even
you
the
know,
Jaden Daniels year when
oh
he
my
got
gosh,
murdered.
yeah, and they had
And
a
they're also in the
17-year
rain.
old. Yeah, they had three NFL players, NFL draft picks on that defensive line, all three of which are still in the league. And we had a 17-year-old out there trying to keep a freshman quarterback upright, and he threw for what 75 yards, 74 yards, or something like that. So,
Yeah, there's this
or
one.
was it 24 yards?
It was awful. It was something. It was double digits for sure. And I just remember there was like this AP or Getty image, great photo of just like the most unpleasant looking, just like he's getting hit and just kind of his body is like in a C shape just because of the force of the hit. And obviously Jaden Daniels weighed like 85 pounds at that point, but still
Yeah,
it was
and
just like rushed.
it's a Joe Healy free show, so we can say Jane Daniels, Jane Daniels, Jane Daniels, Jane Daniels. We can say his name a bunch of times, but like that's what people always talk about, all these hits that he takes at LSU, and they're like, wow, could he survive these? I'm like, wow, if he could survive Utah as a freshman,
Yeah.
he could survive anything.
And the final key, as I like to see them continue the kind of the creativity on offense, but as you said, I don't want to see them necessarily have to do like the creativity take the form of the kind of the bag of tricks, stuff that we saw against USC. But having that balance last week, I thought was so key because it was like that Kenny Dillingham, what a year three type of stuff when you had the run game, but also complemented with a passing game that we hadn't seen all year long. I think maybe outside the opener when they're taking some shots against Southern Utah, just being able to use those playmakers because you still have Jalen Conyers and Elijah Badger and even the rest of the tight ends. I'd like to see Xavier Guillory get involved a little bit more because he has the skill set to kind of stretch and make things down, but overall, just like to see that the creativity for them to use those explosive playmakers in ways that'll help prevent the youth from kind of sneaking up and loading up against the run.
I 100% agree with you, and I think that it is time to give Utah a taste of their own medicine and tight end them to death. I think
Yeah.
this is the year that you can get away with it because they don't have the ability. ASU has the personnel to make it happen and the talent, and they wouldn't be doing it unless it worked. So I say do it back to them.
All right, so now it's time for our game predictions. I'll start things off and lay out how I think this is going to go. Thankfully, no rain in the forecast as of yet, so that factors out. And it's not going to be as cold as last week, but it's still going to be some chilly fall weather. A morning kickoff, or I guess local time it'll be at noon, but a morning kickoff here in Arizona for those watching. I think it's going to be a real ugly game. I think that both offenses are really kind of going to struggle to get any kind of consistency going. Both defenses have been very good, and I think both defenses will again be very good. I think turnovers are probably going to dictate this one. And I just think that ASU, coming off some positive momentum against Wazoo, is going to find things a little bit tougher this week. But I do think that they're going to be really competitive down to near the end. But I almost think that this has kind of like a prior 4 week kind of feel that they're going to play well enough to win. But Utah on the road, there's some magic they have at home. I think they're going to kind of maybe get a late turnover that helps them secure a 19-17 Ute victory.
1917 would be well, there's a safety thrown in there or like a 2-point conversions after touchdowns and a field goal.
I think
However many,
4 field goals and a
and a
touchdown or
touchdown.
something.
Oh, okay. I like that.
A
I
lot
would
of
say,
bend, not a whole lot of break.
yeah, I will give Arizona State the grace of saying that if you can turn the ball over one time or less, you're going to win this game.
Hmm.
It's not a great recipe for holding on to the ball, playing in Rice Eccles. So, one turnover or less, this is a 24-20 ASU win. 2 turnovers or more, I'm willing to go like 3 touchdown Utah win. Because if you're turning the ball over, if you're giving them the opportunity to get like a stop and a bucket, as Manny Wilkins used to say, we're looking at like a 38-17 Utah victory. So and my whole thing is contingent on taking care of the ball. I think yours is as well. It might sound like I'm waffling, but
A little bit.
this is not a good. It's not a good Utah team by Utah standards. It's not an offensively talented team, and it's not an overwhelmingly talented defense either. It's just well coached. You can match coaching and you can match effort, and ASU has a little more talent at the skill positions than Utah does right now. I know I started this podcast by saying everything starts and stops up front or whatever, but there are there are there are ways to get around that when the other team has a pig farmer walk on at quarterback. You should expect to win. You play to win the game, right? So
I think today's might be the 20th anniversary of that, or was it yesterday or something? But yeah, it's been 20 years since that quote.
Are you sure it hasn't been 1,000 years? Because that's how much I've heard it and said it. But yeah, no, I think Arizona State can win this game so long as they don't have like the fumbleitis, and because I don't think the issue is going to be interceptions. I don't think Arizona State's going to put the ball in play in a way that puts that at risk. Yeah, I think they're trying to get Trenton Bourguet under 30 pass attempts. Is really recipe for success. So it really comes down to, can Trenton, Tevin, anybody that touches the ball, can you hold on to it? Ball security is going to be the biggest thing in this game for me, because if that takes place, I think ASU has enough to beat Utah. I think they have enough juice. I think they have enough talent. And Utah just got exposed. They really did. That skill can overcome the physicality that they bring to the table, even in Rice Eccles.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot because Joe's name's off the score graphic that we're going to post on social on Saturday. What's the official Ralph Stradamus prediction? Dusting off a classic here.
Yeah, 24-20 ASU. Let's do it.
Woo, okay. There we go.
So with Sun Devil basketball on the horizon, we got to bring in our guy, our man, KD, Kyle Dodd, former guard for the Sun Devils, and of course the analyst on radio broadcast. Got to bring him in to talk about this season, Bobby Hurley, the Sun Devils, and of course ASU's move next year to the Big 12 Conference. KD, my brother, how you doing, man?
I'm good, fellas. I can't believe we're already back, knocking on the door of hoop season, but can't wait. I think it's going to be another interesting year, loads of talent. It's like we've done the last couple of years, just going to see if they can mesh and come together. And it's going to be a fun brand of basketball to watch, I think. And, like I said, I'm excited to be back and talking to my boys.
It's 80 degrees outside. Sun Devil football finally got a win. So yeah, life's good. We got basketball on the horizon. Times are good right now. So before we talk about the immediate upcoming future for Sun Devil basketball, let's talk about the future beyond this season. Of course, ASU's move to the Big 12 Conference. It's one of the most competitive basketball conferences in the nation. So give us your thoughts on that conference move for Sun Devil athletics starting in 2024.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. A lot of the cities that will be adding, in the mix on road games are cities that we are very different than what we've experienced in the past. And basketball means a lot to a lot of these places. And I think some of the road games are going to be, more highly attended than we may have seen in the Pac-10, Pac-12 over the last several years. But, basketball wise, everybody, I know a lot of people love the Big 10, love the Big 12 or whatever. I think, the Pac-12, Pac-10, talent wise is always there. So I don't see a lot changing, on the floor. I think the atmospheres and the arenas and stuff, like I said, may have a little bit more attention, but I'm excited. It's a good conference. After the initial shock, it is what it is. Can't change it now. So only thing that I can do personally and we can do as ASU fans is move forward.
So obviously you played in what was at the time the Pac-10 conference. You grew up in the conference's footprint in California, and of course you've been going up and down this league doing the radio broadcast with some dude named Tim. How, on a personal level, how is this for you? Is it a bittersweet thing? How does this move hit you?
I said all the politically correct things in the last answer. I'm gonna tell you personally, it sucks, dude. I don't like it at all. I hate it. I mean, like I said, I am over it. I'm moving on. But I grew up in SoCal, man, and I grew up in the Pac-10, and it was UCLA and USC for me, obviously, as a kid. But then, all I wanted to do was play in the Pac-10. That was my lifelong dream. I didn't care who it was for. And I did that, and I loved the league playing in it. And then, having the chance to work in the league, I loved the league working in it. And I know it's an easy target on a lot of stuff. And, people like to rip on the Pac, and even our own fans, we do. But, I was pretty bummed. Like, I know a lot of people were excited and ready for something new, but I mean, for real, I'm not lying. Like I told Doug Tamro, like I was off that whole weekend. I was just like, this sucks, man. I mean, I want to go to UCLA and USC. I want to go to Cal Stanford. I want to go to Oregon State, Oregon. I want to go to, everywhere. It was really kind of rocked me a little bit. But, that being said, it's time to move on, and we gotta do what we gotta do. And, I think maybe our kids and grandkids are going to grow up and feeling about the Big 12 or the Big 16 or the Big 25 or whatever we're going to be. They'll feel that way about the conference, like we did with the Pac-10 and Pac-12.
So looking back on last year, and I guess the Bobby Hurley era as a whole, there's like a topic I want to get your opinion on, because I see on the message boards and social media, there's some ASU basketball fans who are like disappointed in the fact that ASU right now is just kind of a perennial, bubble team, making a lot of appearances at Dayton. That's something I wholeheartedly disagree with, because I remember not that long ago, we're getting to the NCAA tournament or even being in that conversation was a far-fetched thing. So what would your reaction be to that, to where there are people out there who kind of like generally disappointed in what Bobby Hurley has done at ASU?
Yeah, I think, I had a lot to speak on this exact topic late last year. Like we did a lot of the, spaces and stuff on Twitter and just talking to people, throughout the end of the season last year. And this was the topic for a lot of people. And I think it's just really funny to me that I don't know if people just care to, make their own history or come, a little bit delusional, but I mean, we don't go to the tournament. I mean, I don't know. We just don't. It's just historically, we don't go to the tournament a lot. And so for us to, be on the bubble every year, since Bobby's been here, has been really good. And yes, do we want to take the next step? Yes. Do we want to advance in the tournament? Yes, we want to do that. And that's the goal. But I mean, to go, 3-4 times, in his time here, I mean, when I say 3 or 4, I'm talking about a year that COVID robbed of us, where we were safely in the dance. And for Bobby to win at 20 games as many times as he has, it just doesn't happen at ASU. I mean, our last tournament, win, outside of, the one James Harden year was my year. And so I don't know, I'm old. Like that was 2003. So, I mean, it's 2023. People, I don't know if they just forget, but we don't have a rich history of going to the dance. So, the excitement around the program last year, winning that game, hammering Nevada and Dayton, and being in a great position to win against TCU. And I mean, we turned that arena into an ASU an ASU favorite arena in Colorado there. And it was just awesome, man. It was really good to see, and came up short. But, I think Bobby has done what's not been done here. And that's perennially, get on the bubble and get to the dance. And, now it's time. Let's win a couple games and make a little bit of a run.
So another year, another overhauled roster for ASU. And of course, they're not alone. It seems to be the new normal. Do you think that we'll get to a point where this kind of roster turnover on an annual basis kind of moderates a little bit, or is this just going to be how it is going forward?
Yeah, I mean, and unless they go back and change things and change rules and go back on kind of what they've developed here, I don't see it being much different in the near future. And I've been telling people recently, it's kind of sucks because Shannon Evans and Trey Holder and Cody Justice and guys like that, where they're Remy Martin, and since I started doing this job, I got to know kids. We travel with them, we sit in the hotels, we eat with them, we're on the buses, we're on the airplanes, and that's over 4 years, and you get to know these kids. Now these guys, I mean, Devin Cambridge and Desmond Cambridge were awesome kids, but just started to get to know Warren Washington and those guys last year, and then they bounce. And I don't blame them. It's the landscape of college athletics. But yeah, I think, this is what we're going to have to deal with every year. I mean, I'm going to be excited to see Frankie and Jemiah because I know them. Everybody else, it's going to be get to know those guys. And, it's definitely different. It's definitely changed. And I think the biggest thing for me is, like 2 years ago, we had really good talent and we couldn't really click. We just couldn't get it going until late in the year, and it was kind of too late. Last year, it really came together and they had a really nice year and they really meshed really well. This year, we're extremely talented. Let's wait and see if these guys can put it together. And I think the thing with Coach Hurley is he's going to test these guys early, and that's what he does. He schedules the way he does, and it's awesome. And I think we'll know a lot, early on where these guys are at. And it's a long season; they have a lot of time to get better and come together. But it's going to be, again, 10, 11 new guys trying to figure each other out and learn each other's games.
So ASU has played a few of those like double secret probation scrimmages against D1 teams in the last few weeks. Not a lot of information comes out about these, but you get the score and maybe some of the leading scorers. And there was a win over San Diego State, the national runner-up last year. So what sort of things from those? Again, I know that the information is limited. Have you seen and heard, in these preseason type of scrimmages?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those things you're trying to figure out. You're trying to learn about your team. I mean, do you want to win? Do you want to be competitive? Yes. I don't think you take a lot. If you win, you lose. Obviously, like I said, you want to win, but it's more about, hey, who plays well with who? Hey, who can I rely on in these situations? Where are we at? As a team on the offensive end, on the defensive end, on rotations, all that type of stuff. So just learning your team. They're just like we used to have exhibition games. We'd play against a D4 school or a team from Australia or whatever, and that's all it is. But, I think obviously, San Diego State's a talented team, and coming off the year they had, if you're in the mix with them, then that's not a bad thing. But like I said, that doesn't mean a whole lot. I mean, I think one of the years Jahi was here, I think we lost to San Francisco by like 40 or something in one of those scrimmages, and that's before even nobody could get, you weren't allowed to say anything about it. And I think San Francisco leaked it because they were like, okay, I know we're not supposed to say anything, but we got to tell somebody we just beat ASU but this bad. So and that year they ended up going to the tournament. So it is what it is. But and I just realized I said San Francisco and losing by 40, and that happened to us last year. So that was probably a bad example. So,
yeah,
my bad.
Speaking it into existence.
Yeah.
So, kind of along the lines of kind of learning about this year's team, last year's squad had kind of more of a defensive-minded personality and character to it. Based on kind of, the few returning guys, and then kind of, some of the new talent that is coming to Tempe. What's your kind of early read on which way this year's squad might lean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a dynamic team. I think, the staple of Bobby's teams have always been how hard they play, how much effort and energy they play with, and how they battle for him and they compete. And I think that's going to be the case this year, just like it will be every year that he coaches a basketball team at Arizona State. They're going to go out and they're going to play as hard as anybody in the conference and in the country. I think this team is built a lot like last year. I think they have a chance to be a really good defensive team with length and athleticism they possess. And I think a key in the offseason was adding some shooting and some offense, to be dynamic on that side of the basketball too. So I think it's going to be an interesting squad. You have a guy like Frankie Collins, a point guard that's coming back. And anytime you have your quarterback, or your floor general coming back, that's always a plus. It's a lot easier to have a guy like that back than just some guy that's on the wing or whatever. So, Frankie, let's see if he can take a big step forward. And I think it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a dynamic, exciting team to watch, and they'll have a chance to do well on both sides of the floor.
Talking about some of the guys that are coming back for another year in Tempe, talking about Jemiah Neal, a guy who had a really hot stretch to finish last season. What are some of the things that you saw during the kind of the back half of the year from him that you think he can build upon and kind of make good on his massive potential?
Yeah, Jemiah was a guy that just really came into his own late in the year last year. Always been ultra talented. Had a couple injuries early in the year last year, and didn't quite get the minutes that he needed to make an impact. And as the year went on, he kept having more meaningful minutes. And then I think the injury to Austin Nunez last year, Austin was in concussion protocol for several weeks at the end of the year. that really thrust Jemiah into a backup guard role, and he took off. I mean, he had an unbelievable Pac-12 tournament. Was a player of the game in my opinion in that first round game in Dayton. Put on a show, and really he was playing with confidence. And sometimes when when the depth is there, you put a little pressure on yourself to make every shot, to make every play, and there's guys behind you. Well, Jemiah, like I said, with Austin being down, he was kind of thrust into that role, and there wasn't too many guys. He was the guy coming in, and outside of that, there wasn't too many guys putting pressure on him. So I think he relaxed a little bit. He was making shots, and he was a really gifted player when he showed up at ASU, but it really showed, and I think that's why he's getting a lot of attention nationally. Andy Katz and Rothstein and some of these people have been mentioning him as a guy that could be a breakout guy in the league and in the country.
Frankie Collins, as you mentioned, coming back as the floor general for the Sun Devil squad, and had some really serious moments of flashing that his own potential last season. What are you expecting from him in year 2 under Bobby Hurley?
Frankie, like I said a minute ago, I think Frankie, the big thing is he's going to have to take that step leadership-wise. This is his basketball team. Can he get guys? Can he make guys better? Frankie was really, really good last year at stretches. Frankie's a guy that can go get his own shot. He can get to the rim. At times, he shot the basketball with confidence last year. At times, I thought he lost confidence in his outside shot. And I maintained last year that he has to take shots. He has to take threes. If guys are going under ball screens, he has to step back and make people honest and, prove that he can knock down those shots, or he's willing to take those shots. So I think that's the next step for Frankie, just leadership, running the ball club, getting guys involved, making guys better, being vocal, and then just do his thing. I mean, athletically, he's very gifted. Like I said, he can go over the top of you at the rim. His handle on the basketball is really good. Very impressed with how well he had the ball on a string at times last year. He made people look stupid. So I think he's in for a big year this year, and I'm excited to see Frankie play and see the next steps in his game.
You mentioned earlier a lot of new faces on this year's squad. Some of them have local ties too from their high school playing days. One of those is Kamari Lance, former top 100 4-star guy. Began his college career at Louisville, came over this past offseason, again, in those, secretive scrimmages, some good notes about him. What are you hearing about him as far as what he might provide to this lineup this season?
Yeah, I mean, Kamari obviously is a guy that's played a high level of basketball, both in high school and then, his first stop at Louisville. So, I think all reports on him so far have been good. I think he's a gifted player. Like I said, athletically, he again fits the mold. Some of the reports I heard, obviously I didn't see the scrimmages, but heard that he played really well, put up some numbers, and I think being a guy that's been in Arizona and has a comfort level with living here helps too. So I think it'll be good for him, and hopefully he can take that next step in his basketball career, and he's going to have an expanded role than he's had, in the past where, at his other stops. So I think it'll be exciting to see him take that next step in his career, and I'm excited to meet him and get to know him a little bit more. But yeah, I think it'll be a good year for him, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
Warren Washington is off to Texas Tech after a good year in Tempe, but as a result, the Sun Devils brought in some intriguing, if unproven, prospects with some good size. What's your read on kind of the prospects for the ASU in the post?
Yeah, I mean, I was bummed about Warren, man. I when he announced that he was coming back, I was super excited. I thought Warren was a good kid, a good player, smart player, had a good year last year. And I was excited about him coming back. Ultimately, he ended up making a decision to leave, and he had to do what's best for him. But to come in and immediately replace him with another 7-footer, ASU hasn't had a lot of 7-footers, so to get a guy that's that size and Phillips and from what I hear, athletically, he gets up. The kid can fly. I mean, I think at 7 foot and above 40-inch vertical is what's been said. So I think anything around the rim, you look for him to finish. Look for some. We saw so many lobs last year. With Cambridge and Warren being able to throw it up to the rim. Frankie's a really good guy at getting it up there. I think you could see that happening a little bit this year. So I'm excited to see, the new guys and what they have in store and what they can. Again, like I said, it's a wide open front line. It's not like you got anybody coming back. So we'll see what they can do, and they're going to have to play a big role early on, and it'll be fun to watch.
Now, obviously, we're still learning a lot about this roster and really won't know what it looks like until the action is live here in a couple weeks. But is there anybody that you kind of see on this roster that might be like that, hidden gem or a name that we may not really know right now, but are really going to learn about over the course of the season? And that can be either a returner or a new player.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a guy, obviously Jemai is the easy opinion, the easy choice as far as a guy that's coming back and just, I think, could really lead this team and take the next step and be an all-conference guy. That's on the returning side of things. But, I mean, I just look, there's so many guys that you just don't know, and I'm going out to practice. I mean, full disclosure, I'm done mostly research like you guys have done. It's all by what I've read and what I know and and the people I've talked to, either from their previous schools or people that have seen them. So I'm going out this week to catch practice. I'm excited to see that. I know like a local guy like Bryson Long. Who knows? I mean, he out of high school, wasn't recruited at this level, but that's not to say he can't play at this level. And he adds a dynamic that really in college basketball, we've seen that shift in guys being able to make shots and stretch the floor. And when you have, the athletes like, adding Kamari Lands and Green and those guys, a guy that can come in and fill it up. He doesn't have to make plays. Frankie can make plays for him or whatever. And I use him as an example because just in college basketball and in NBA, there's so many, the game has shifted so much to behind the arc that's the one guy that sticks out, a guy that can flat out knock down shots and get hot. We saw what Devin Cambridge, provided last year when he was on fire. I mean, we were a completely different team because it just opened everything up. So, I'm excited to see some of these guys and get out. And I think they have an opportunity to play fast, play up tempo, and it'll be a brand of basketball, like I said, that'll be easy to cheer for.
Now, obviously, a lot of brand new pieces in Tempe, and of course, the chemistry and the rapport issues are, you just never know how quickly things will come along and gel. But all encompassingly, when you look at this roster and kind of the history of Bobby Hurley teams, what do you think is a reasonable level of fan expectations for this season?
I mean, I think, like I said, at the very beginning, Coach Hurley's teams will always play hard. They always compete. So I think, in college athletics, in any sport, energy, effort, being a good teammate takes care of a lot of mistakes, and communication takes care of a lot of mistakes. And those are all things that Bobby requires of his team. So I think that side of it, we're going to be a good team on that side of it. We're going to be in games. We're going to be competitive. We're going to play anybody anywhere like we all do. On the, just the talent wise, I think we're right there with the last several years. I think this team has a chance to be a very good team in this league. I mean, we were picked in the middle of the pack. I mean, when aren't we picked in the middle of the pack? And, maybe a couple of times we're picked down at the bottom, but I mean, we're picked about 5th, 6th for most people. And I think that we could exceed those expectations like we did last year. And like we did, 2 or 3 seasons ago. And when I think Rob Edwards' senior year, we were picked 8th or 9th. And I mean, we were winning the league late in the year that year. I mean, I think I would anticipate a really good year. I think we'll be knocking on the door for 20 wins again and be in the tournament mix. And, again, I think it'll be fun to watch. And I'm super excited. Like I said, there's only a couple guys coming back and the other guy it just popped in my head too is Alonzo Gaffney's back too.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm extremely excited about him too because he really came on. I mean, Alonzo's just super long and athletic, and he really came into his own a little bit late in the year last year, and he adds a dynamic, especially defensively. They went to a 3-quarter court press last year late in the year, and he added a really interesting dynamic defensively. Being able to play, he's quick enough and athletic enough to move, but play and long enough to affect people on the point of that press and kind of drop back into his zone. And so Gaffney's another guy. I can't believe I didn't mention him earlier, but yeah, I'm super excited to see what Alonzo can do this year.
And it all gets started Wednesday, November 8th. Playing on the road, taking on Mississippi State in that first home game, a revenge game, Texas Southern, in the afternoon, Saturday, November 11th. Katie, you know that we will all be staying tuned about it, and always appreciate you, my friend, and we will certainly catch up before too long, talk some more Sun Devil basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, guys. And I mean, I want to be maybe 3-4 appearances this year. I want to put some distance between me and Matt Berry.
That's right. We haven't even brought up the tally. What is where are we now with that?
Well, this will break the tie.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
And
Kyle's ahead now.
He's always trying to work something in there, but it's basketball season coming up here, so let's do this. But no, I'm excited, guys. I can't wait. I love you guys. Love visiting with you. And Joe, you're my boy. We'll see at some more football games. But yeah, let's finish football strong and get hoops rolling.
All right, and that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our guests, Kyle Dodd and Ryan Morgan. Ralph, thank you so much for this. Is an all-timer right now. Had a lot of fun. You're doing a lot of things. How can folks keep up with you?
Yeah, so the Pac-12 Apostles podcast is ending because the Pac-12 is ending. But we appreciate anybody that listens. Leaves reviews. We're 4 years deep into this, and it's something I care about a lot. And I know that there's definitely some crossover here, and I appreciate anybody who listens. Other than that, still the publisher of Arizona Varsity, covering high school football all over the state of Arizona. I have a great crew of people who I work with on that. So if you follow me, then definitely follow Chili, Cody Cameron, Zach Elvira, all those guys. And then, yeah, outside of that, you could just find me on twitter.com or X or whatever you want to call it. I am extremely accessible. And let's chat about anything. Oh, Sun Devil Spaces Wednesday night. Yeah, that's always a good time, hanging out with Sun Devil fans, and complaining about issues that none of those people actually contribute to. That's a big thing on Wednesday nights. We get on there and we're like, man, I wish ASU fans did this, and this differently. But the people that are in there are the 50 people who care the most. So it's a nice group therapy session every Wednesday, and every once in a while we get some pretty awesome guests. And former member of Sun Devil Spaces is Kenny Dillingham. So if you want to be like Kenny Dillingham, you got to get in the Spaces.
Absolutely. And so I have my hockey games on Wednesday nights, and that's my favorite thing is usually after the game, it's just about the time for the Sun Devil Spaces for the drive home from Peoria down to Uptown Phoenix. So it's always a great listen. I'll make sure you also follow the show on social media at SOTD Podcast on Twitter, at Speak of the Devils on Instagram, and we're also on YouTube. Subscribe there, Facebook as well. You can follow me on the social stuff at BDenny29. Also give a shout out to Sun Devil Family Charities, a 501c3 nonprofit organization created primarily for the purpose of raising funds to provide financial assistance to ASU alums, students, staff, and immediate family members adversely affected by medical issues. Head over to sundevilfamily.org and be sure to give them a follow on Instagram at sundevilfam and on Twitter at sundevil_family. And also be sure to drop us a 5-star review everywhere you get your podcasts. And Joe and I will be back next week talking about what the hell happened in Salt Lake City. Hopefully some good things to talk about there, and look ahead to ASU's final, for now at least, trip to the Rose Bowl.